How you doing? This is UK Fish ID videos. Through these series of films, I'm going to show you how to identify various British fish, both from the sea and fresh water. We're going to go through what they eat, where they live, and how to identify them from similar species. If you'd like to learn more about identifying UK fish, then why not get my latest book? It's available online and in local bookshops. There's a link in the description if you're interested. This week we're looking at one of my favourite groups of fish, that is the Blennies. They're all over our coastlines and there's a few species that we get in the UK. Let's get into it. This week we're looking at the Blennies. They're a group of marine fish that I have a real soft spot for. Now, as usual, I'm going to do my little disclaimer. You can't positively ID any fish from colour alone. They can change colours so rapidly according to health, age, sexual dimorphism, habitat and stress. So colour in general is only used as a guide in conjunction with other factors. Let's take a look at our first Blenny, and that is the common Blenny or the shanny. They're a slimy fish with broken up coloration of browns, yellows and a reddish eye. It has a dark spot at the front of the dorsal fin and lacks any tentacles or branches on the head. Males in the spring may be jet black in breeding colours. The lips are quite pronounced and thick. One of its old names is the sea frog, due to its frog-like face, but is also due to the fact that it can be seen out of water. These fish, like many rockpool specialists, can survive out of water at low tide, meaning there's less competition for space. They achieve this by keeping damp and absorbing oxygen through their skin. In terms of distribution, they're the most common species of Blenny to be encountered on our shores, and they're found pretty much all around the UK, but are most common on the western shores. The habitat that they're most closely associated with is rock pools and rough ground, although they're equally at home in harbours and piers, hiding in gaps and holes. The easiest way to ID shannies compared to any other Blenny in the UK is the fact that it has no tentacles on its head, or branches, whatever you want to call them, basically the fleshy bits on the head. Every other Blenny species that is commonly found in the UK has these, and the shanny doesn't. So if it doesn't have these, it's a shanny. In terms of size, pretty much all of the Blennies are around about the size of your hand, although arguably the next fish that I'm going to talk about, the tompot Blenny, is normally much bigger. So a common Blenny might get to the size of your hand. Tompots can get up to 25 centimetres long. Tompots are a larger sized Blenny, and the key feature on this species is the tentacles above each eye, which stick out a little like fleshy antlers. It has dark bars that band across the body with a reddy colour generally, but can appear brown also. There's a single dorsal fin on the back, which starts with spikes and turns more soft as it runs down the body. It has large pectoral fins, and each individual tompot will have unique markings, which means if you get a good look at a tompot, if you catch it again or you photograph it again, you can actually ID individuals. Males are quite territorial and will guard their homes most of the year, but especially when it comes to mating. The female will lay her eggs in a hole with the males watching over them. He'll clean algae off them, fan them, and he'll use his fins to get more oxygen to them, chasing away any egg thieves. After a month or so, they'll hatch and disperse into the local area. Tompots have a wide distribution, from the Channel Islands to Shetland. They're most abundantly found on the southern and western coasts of the UK, and they're unlikely to be found on the east coast of England. The habitat is generally rocky, and they like to hide on reef edges, cracks and crevices. Not especially a deep water fish, they're often found in more shallow seas. This next one is a relatively recent arrival to British shores, and it's the one that you're most likely to confuse with the tompot, and that's the ringneck Blenny. Now the colours on this Blenny can be highly variable, from completely yellow to a mottled mix of browns and blacks and a stripe along the flank. It's what leads to its other name, the variable Blenny. The males will turn dark black to a purpley colour when spawning. The key feature is the ringing on the underside of the chin, given its common name. The tentacles on the head are thin and flaky and not as thick as a tompot. Ringnecks are generally smaller than tompot Blennies too. Male ringneck blennies are highly territorial and will chase, fight and even kill rivals for territory and breeding rights. They're found generally in the southwest of England but are likely under-recorded due to similarities with tompat blennies. Due to the popularity of species hunting and angling, the ringneck is being correctly identified with increasing regularity. It's a coastal species often found in harbours, piers and merle beds, but like the butterfly blennies, they will hide away in old shells and litter such as bottles in deeper water. The next one is the Montagu's blenny, and this is probably our smallest species. Although they can get roughly the same size as shannies, you often find them much smaller, so they're a more difficult fish to ID. They have a single fleshy crest on the head, like a fishy unicorn, and behind this, smaller flaps of skin leading to the start of a single continuous dorsal fin. As the dorsal fin extends, it dips down. Overall, the body has banding and pale browns, yellows and blacks, with some characteristic blue spots also. Unlike other similar blennies, the chin area is covered with tiny cream spots. Now, we mentioned the tentacles with the other ones. Montagu's blenny only have one. So we mentioned shanny have none, the Montagu's has one, and the other species have two. So Montagu's are the only blenny with one kind of fleshy crest, if you like. So they're an easy one to ID as long as you get a good look at the head. The distribution is mostly restricted to southwest England and Wales, the Channel Islands and the west coast of Ireland. Increasingly, they're being found further east along the south coast of England. They're a rock pool species and they're not often found in deeper water. They like rock pools further up the shore with less competition from other species. Often pools that you wouldn't even think fish were present in, you'll find Montagu's, especially those with pink seaweed and mussel beds, as they like to feed on the mussels. Like shannies, they can survive out of water as well, so you can even find them under rocks where there's no water at all. The next species is perhaps one of the most beautiful, and that is the butterfly blenny. Its general appearance is like many other blennies, but the main difference is the flamboyant dorsal fin, which is huge. There's also a black spot with a blue halo around it on the upper half of the dorsal fin, which is likely to mimic the eye of a larger fish to ward off predators. Two fleshy tentacles on the head are present, with a mix of banding on the flanks with blues, browns and whites. They're often found hiding in discarded shells, but they'll also make use of litter to hide away in, which they tend not to stray too far away from. The female will lay eggs in the shell for protection, which hatch out a few weeks later and disperse on ocean currents. They're typically found along the southern edge of England, the Welsh coastline and the Isle of Man, but they're likely under-recorded. Being such a small fish and found in deeper water, most anglers are unlikely to catch them, and they're not often seen by divers either. This blenny typically prefers broken seabed such as rocks or where merle is present, and they generally stay in water up to 100 metres, but they can come a lot shallower than that. Although the rarest blenny so far, it's definitely one of the easier ones to ID because it's the only one with a huge dorsal fin. So if you catch a blenny with a large dorsal fin, it's a butterfly blenny. I'm briefly going to mention two other blenny species, which are the red blenny and the peacock blenny. So red blennies, sometimes called Portuguese blennies, are definitely found in British waters. They've been seen off the Isles of Scilly, off the Cornish coast, the Welsh coast and the west coast of Scotland. In particular, they're also seen in the Republic of Ireland, particularly in southwest Ireland, which seems to have a pretty healthy population of them. Although I'm not aware of any anglers ever catching them, although it's only a matter of time. Scuba divers are the ones who are most likely to see these fish. They basically look like a tompat blenny, but they're a little bit smaller and more of a lighter red, and they're generally found in deeper water. They're not an inshore species, so they're typically going to be deeper out. The other one is the peacock blenny. Now I should point out, as of recording, there's been no confirmed sightings of peacock blenny in the UK. However, off the coast of Brittany in France, there's a thriving population of these blennies. It's only a matter of time before they colonise the Channel Islands, the Isles of Scilly and the southwest. So I thought I would very quickly mention those, because if I were to put money on it, I would say that we'll have peacock blennies in the UK before long. The last species that I'm going to talk about is the black-faced blenny. Now it's slightly different to the others. All the other blennies that I've mentioned so far are in a family called comb-tooth blennies because, unsurprisingly, their teeth look a bit like combs. If you ever catch any of these fish, have a look at their mouth. If they don't bite you, they can all be quite aggressive. But the black-faced blenny belongs to another family of blennies called the triple fins. So it is a blenny, it's just not in the same family as the other blenny species. Now when trying to attract a mate, the male black-faced blenny swims in a figure of 8 to catch her attention, and after spawning, the female leaves care of the eggs to the male, who guards them. Along the back it has 3 dorsal fins, and below 1 long anal fin. In the spring they're sexually dimorphic, with the males taking on a splendid black head and a yellow body, making them hard to mix up with any other fish. Females and non-breeding males will be a pinky brown mix with a few spots and darker bands over the body. They have a limited distribution, almost exclusively found in southern England, though they're also in the Channel Islands and the Scilly Isles, and in terms of habitat, found in relatively shallow water, up to 40 metres, typically living in rocky areas, harbours, pipes and piers to hide away in, often in underhangs where they tend to hide away. So before I cover the kind of hardcore ID features to tell all these fish apart, I will just briefly mention another family of fish, the gunnels, where you get butterfish, eel pout, sometimes known as viperous blenny, yarrow's blenny and wolffish, because although these look like blennies, they're not blennies. If people want me to do a video on them, comment down below and let me know and I'll ID those. But if you're wondering why isn't he included any of these, they're not technically blennies, so that's why they're not in this list. So IDing all of these fish. Shanies have no branches on the head, so they're fairly easy. If you catch a blenny and there's no fleshy bits on the head, it's a shani. If there's one fleshy bit on the head, it's a Montagues. So again, Montagues are pretty easy to ID. Blackface blennies are also fairly easy to ID. If it's in the breeding season and you see a male, it's the only fish with a black face and a yellow body. But also, because they're triple fin blennies, they're the only blenny to have 3 dorsal fins. So if you find a blenny with 3 separate dorsal fins, it's got to be a blackface blenny. All of the other blennies have 1 continuous dorsal fin. Butterfly blennies also have a large dorsal fin. They're the only blenny with a really big dorsal fin. So again, they're all pretty straightforward. It gets a little bit more difficult when it comes to tompots and ringnecks. The quickest way is to look under the chin of the ringneck and see if there's a ring there. If there's a ring, it's a ringneck. If there isn't, it's a tompot. However, if you're snorkeling or diving, this might be harder to see. So the other ways is that the branches are less pronounced on a ringneck than a tompot. They're generally a smaller fish, and they tend to lack the really vivid red and purples that you get on tompot blennies. Don't forget, if you want to learn more about UK fish, do grab a copy of my book. There's a link in the description if you want to find out more. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds for you and it really helps the channel out. Go and have a look at some of the other UK Fish ID videos we've got on the channel, as well as the underwater and angling content on here. See you next time. Cheers. If you enjoyed this vid, why not check out this other video right here? If you can, please subscribe to the channel. It only takes a couple of seconds and it really helps me out. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.